Hello, my name is the Doctor. You're watching Hadley. Reverse the polarity.
If I had to single out one era of Doctor Who as my favourite, I'd struggle. But I definitely have a bias towards the early years. The Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Susan are legendary, but Jamie and the Second Doctor probably have the best Doctor-companion dynamic that we've ever seen. But the Unique arc was probably the most comfortable that the show ever felt to me. Unfortunately, I was accidentally born too early to share the Earth with any of my favourite Doctors, with John Pertwee passing away a mere year before I was born. According to the analytics of who watches my videos, I've probably made you feel quite old right now, and I apologise for that. But enjoying these early years presents me with the rare problem of not really having any merchandise available to me. There's plenty of stuff for the new show, and even the classic Doctors have got new merchandise released for them, but I don't like that. I don't like just going into Forbidden Planet and buying something. There's just no accomplishment in that. But going into every single charity shop that I pass, monthly car boot sales and trawling eBay listings until late into the night makes me feel like an archaeologist. No one's Doctor Who collection is the same as anyone else's Doctor Who collection, and odds are every item in it is going to have its own little bit of history. I'm quite proud of my collection. I've been building it for about 12 years and have gathered a few quite unique pieces that I'd like the opportunity to share on here. There's not going to be anything insanely expensive, as I personally put more value on an item's history rather than its rarity, and I'm not going to go in order of rarity on my favourites, though it'll be obvious which is which. In fact, I'm going to go through my collection in chronological order that I got them to keep things a bit exciting. I'm also not going to include the DVD collection because I have them all, you have them all. Just look at yours, you get the same effect. That's right, it's a filler episode. Let's get ready to dive into Dr. Hadley's Docu Who collection. We're actually starting off with one of my favourite pieces. If I could only retain one thing from my entire collection, it would probably be this. Oh, I'm going to move my hand because it's interfering with the camera. These are autographs from William Russell and Carole Ann Ford, the actors for Ian and Susan respectively. William Russell I got during the year of the 50th, when a lot of rare Doctor Who actors were coming out of the woodwork to celebrate and, let's be honest, bank off of this small role they had in a TV show 50 years ago. And let me tell you, it was really great being at MCM Comic Con, a convention I've been critical of for its gentrification, being there and seeing by far the biggest queue for any guest, being a 19-year-old man who starred in said 50-year-old TV show, and for only a year. This convention was held on the 23rd and 24th of November, and Russell's birthday... And oh, I've just realised that Carol has a bloody big ring light. Let's move that for her. It's a very professional setting here on the Dr. Hadley channel. The convention was on the 23rd and 24th of November, and Russell's birthday had been 4 days previously on the 19th. Because of this, the group I was with had the cunning plan to buy a Doctor Who birthday card, spend the day getting different Doctor Who cosplayers to sign it. We delivered it to his table, and he looked absolutely chuffed, and he kept that card on his table all day. This is a 17-year-old Dr. Hadley in his first ever cosplay. Carol's autograph was a different experience and a far more complicated one. I had been trying to meet her for years, and on 2 occasions she'd been announced as a special guest. I'd pre-ordered an autograph and a photo set, and then on both occasions she'd cancelled. I don't blame her for this, she is her own woman living her own life, but the daunting aspect of her age taking hold before I'd gotten to meet her was definitely I don't mean to sound bad saying that, but it was definitely a factor. It took nearly 10 years before I eventually, finally, had the chance when she was announced as a guest for Spectacular Signings, an event hosted by Phantom Events. These guys are legit. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you probably know about these chaps. There's no guest too controversial, no role too small. If you have any relation to Doctor Who in any way, you have probably guessed it at a Phantom Events signing. On the day I arrived at St. Michael's Church in Chiswick, and to my absolute relief, Carol was alive and well. I got my autograph. I also wanted a picture, however, but her photo shoots weren't until 1 o'clock, which left me with about 2 hours to kill. You can take the man out of the north, but you'll never take the north out of the man. So I went to the closest pub. And it was here, day drinking at my Doctor Who event, that I met my friend Foxy, at the time a stranger, who I've since gone on to have a working relationship with. All Maya's folly, stay tuned for more. So although these items have relevancy in my own history, they also represent something much larger. Carol and Russell were the last surviving members of the TARDIS crew, or they were when I put this together. What I hold here is my physical connection to the show that started it all. Here we have a flyer for Doctor Who, The Ultimate Adventure, starring Jon Pertwee. I think the very existence of this is insanity. Imagine you could just go watch Peter Capaldi performing live as the Doctor. I know Doctor Who has become a British institution now, but I think one of the reasons I like the earlier stuff so much is how humble the show's attitude was. They performed this all over the UK, but as you can see, this one specifically is for the 22nd to the 27th of May in where else but Manchester. Way! I have to keep moving the camera around so that everything's in frame. This is Doctor Who Destiny of the Doctors. It was the first time that a Doctor Who game strayed into 3D, and this was bloody ambitious. It was the kind of Jurassic Park trespasser of Doctor Who. The passion, ambition, and budget was there. They really wanted to make this something special, and I argue that it is. The live-action segments of Anthony Ainley were the last time that he portrayed the Master, and these clips are begging for some kind of reutilisation. Imagine if, in World and Enough in Time, when the two Masters are there, they suddenly cart out a classroom TV with Ainley on it, and he's trapped in a time vortex. Another personal favourite comes from, yet again, Doctor Who's 50th anniversary. Honestly, 2013 was such a good time to be a Doctor Who fan. I could only equate it to that one summer that Pokemon Go released, and it was the closest thing we're ever going to get to world peace. I was there on the front lines with the Omni Rumour, and there's a good chance when I said those words that a good chunk of you cringed at the memory. The situation was simple. In the build-up to the show's 50th, a specific rumour got very far among fans that allegedly every single missing episode had been rediscovered. Now, when the news did break, it wasn't as exciting as all that. Only 10 missing episodes were returned, then one of them went missing in transit, but that's a whole other story. Enemy of the World and Web of Fear were mostly returned to our screens. As the announcement came, the two serials were released immediately on iTunes, and on the 11th of November 2013, I stayed up 3 hours watching a new, old episode of classic Doctor Who. I had college in the morning, I was wild back then. And I got to fill in a missing episode checklist by hand. That's euphoric for any Doctor Who fan. I enjoyed the whole thing so much that I bought both variants of the Doctor Who magazine cover about the Omni Rumour as kind of my memory, my souvenir of that time. And eventually, I liked the look of them in the frame so much that a few years later I tracked down the copy about the rediscovery of the Tomb of the Cybermen in the early 90s. So, I know I said I weren't going to do DVDs, but I'm making an exception here because, well, I want to, it's my video. The War Games is my favourite, not just Troughton story, but possibly favourite story of all time. This is Wendy and Fraser's autographs here. I got these, I think, at the same Birmingham Comic-Con that I met Willie Russell at. Then there's also The Chase, signed by Peter Purves, as it is his introductory episode for his character Stephen, and The Chase is underrated as hell. It is location hopping, it's funny, it's Ian and Barbara's last trip in the TARDIS. It might not be my favourite Hartnell story, but it's definitely my favourite out of the Dalek Mania quadrilogy. Inferno, autographed by Christopher Benjamin and Roy Scammell. This one was a gift, actually, from my mother. Christopher Benjamin is most known for his role in Django and Lightfoot, but this is actually the only other episode of Doctor Who that he did do, and unfortunately, I believe, passed away quite recently. Here we go. Only OGs remember the Eagle Moss collection. Again, done to celebrate the show's 50th anniversary, figurine makers Eagle Moss got their hands on the Doctor Who licence, began producing die-cast figurines spanning the entire history of the show. They came with these display plinths to put the figures on, but would only actually ship one of these per customer, so these became pretty popular in the second-hand market. I feel the plimps really do make the collection. I've seen far bigger collections, but they just don't have the same majesty about them when lined up along the shelf. This range went on for years, and eventually it got way too difficult for me to keep up with them, especially when a good half of their releases were the new reboot content, which I've already said just isn't my thing. So, instead, I decided to cherry pick certain figures and create a little display, a little tribute to each of my favourite eras. I picked up my most recent one from the Who shop in London, and that was the 4 set of the First Doctor and his companions. Got this for a discounted price because, wouldn't you know it, Susan's ankle was broken. Sheer poetry. This is fantastic. This is beautiful. Look at this. And it's an original. This is the first Doctor Who annual, out in 1966. And wasn't too tricky to get hold of either. You can actually pick these up fairly cheap in the second-hand market. There, you can see John and Gillian, the First Doctor's comic exclusive companions, who are also his other grandchildren. Did we ever get a canon explanation to John and Gillian? I'm fine with these guys being canon. Just look how beautiful this vintage artwork is. It is so iconic. They reference it in An Adventure in Space and Time, and the DVD release was actually a recreation of the annual's cover. Look at that. This is how you respect your elders. Ready? This is... Oh. Cut. This is from Doctor Who's 50th anniversary, the convention down in London. They did each of these for each of the Doctors, and as you can tell, this one is Bill Hartnell. It is by far the biggest thing I have in my collection. Probably the reason why I filmed this video, because frankly I'm sick of it just sitting under my bed. I can't tell you where I got it from because I will be implicating someone. But how big is your Doctor Who collection, eh? I got this beauty. Oh, it doesn't even fit in the frame. I got this beauty from London Comic Con at the Forbidden Planet store where it made its debut. That's a bit better. And there's the mug that I got with it. I know I said we don't like mainstream items earlier, but these were done specifically in celebration for the 60th, and being the first to own them does make me feel a little bit special. Plus, what an obscure bit of artwork the War Games print is. This isn't accurate, but neither's the one in the show, so... Now we have Doctor Who, The Paradise of Death, and Doctor Who, The Ghosts of N-Space. John Pertwee, Nick Courtney, and Liz Sladen all reprise their roles for these BBC audio dramas, totally predating Big Finish. The stories themselves are okay. Not my favourites, but they are more episodes of John Pertwee's Doctor Who. There's no recasts or impressionists here. These are just as valid as anything that we've seen on TV. I am going to say, as a companion, I don't really think Sarah Jane works as well with the third Doctor as she does the fourth. So personally, I'd have rather they got Katie Manning or, in a perfect world, Caroline John. But personal feelings towards the story are irrelevant when I'm holding an often slept-on part of Doctor Who history. These are the last stories where Pertwee ever portrayed the Doctor. He died a few months after their release, and of course, now recording this in 2025, all of the cast have since passed, so for that reason, these tapes will always have a special place in my heart. So, we're a bit lucky with the Third Doctor's era because we have quite a few surviving cast members from that time. And I've got my little tribute for the start of the show, so this is my equivalent for the Third Doctor's tenure. A big compilation piece of relevant actors. This is John Levine, Richard Franklin, R.I.P. my boy, and Sadie Miller up here, who, of course, is playing Sarah Jane in the Big Finish Chronicles. I still want to get Katie Manning and Tim Treloar's contribution to this, but so far, this is my tribute to the Third Doctor's era. Way back before the days of animations or missing episode reconstructions, this was the way that the BBC went about releasing their missing episodes. You see, we've got the Fury from the Deep, Power of the Daleks, and the Evil of the Daleks. And what makes these unique, and why I think these are being severely slept on nowadays, we should go back to listening to tapes, is they are presented by different Doctors in character for their respective roles, which kind of makes these a little like multi-Doctor stories. And Tomb of the Cybermen, which I do not have, is narrated by John Pertwee, so next time someone tells you that the third Doctor has never faced a Cybermen, remind him that that's not strictly true. Another one that is too big to fit on screen, this is Dalek Mania, and it's basically just a big 60s Dalek goodie bag. I was a bit let down by the actual Dalek Mania documentary, as it was only focusing on the Cushing films, and I was expecting kind of a big overview of the Daleks and their success in the show. But if that's your thing, I'm sure you'll have a right old time with this. It's a bit like the annual, it's quite easy to come across, and this artwork is just... this is a display piece for sure. Bit of a more unique one now. When you think of the missing episodes being returned, your mind probably jumps to the discovery of Web of Fear and Enemy of the World. Before they broke the headlines, the most well-known rediscovered episode was Tomb of the Cybermen. It was a big deal when it came out, as you can tell by the poster, because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was the first time that people were ever able to re-watch Tomb of the Cybermen. I don't think it was ever repeated. I'd have to check with Adam Martin for that. The general consensus is that this is one of, if not the best Troughton story. It's hard to disagree. This is one that genuinely lives up to the hype. So, this is another interesting one. Target has been publishing written adaptations of Doctor Who stories for, well, as nearly as long as the show's been going on, but that's not what this is. After the serial Web in Space came to a close, it ends on the Doctor and Jamie telling their new companion Zoe about their last encounter with the Daleks. And then over the next 6 weeks, they re-aired Evil of the Daleks. This is a novelisation of that re-airing. It's written from Jamie's point of view, written by Fraser himself, recounting the tale. I think it's a really neat and nifty, unique way of approaching it and justifying why the story deserves another adaptation. And, mine is... ooh, what's that? Oh, Doctor Who, the 50th anniversary. Okay. Mine is autographed by Fraser Hines. Comes with a nice little art card, and I think I won this with a competition because I know this came from Fraser directly. I didn't get this signed in person, and the art card was also part of that package. This is a weird one that I found completely by accident. It was Sheffield Comic Con. I can't remember the exact year, but I remember Robert Englund was a guest, and I was able to get my Nightmare on Elm Street poster signed by him. Being a big horror fan, that was the main thing that brought me to the con. So, imagine my surprise. Imagine my surprise when I find this bit of artwork for the Web of Fear. This was framed when I bought it. I've taken it out because it's now in storage. The covers for the Doctor Who books are known to be gorgeous and have an entire community devoted to them. The issue is, this isn't a Target novelisation cover. I was sure it was, but I can't find for the life of me any release that used this. And the letters DWB link to the unofficial Doctor Who Bulletin magazine. I can imagine this was produced as sort of an in-magazine exclusive poster, the sort you get in kids' magazines that are always a bit shit, because they always have stupid staple holes right in the middle. But there's none of those here, so I genuinely have no idea what this is or where it was sold. I don't even know the artist. Frankly, my attachment to this bit of art is the sheer obscurity of it and the odd chances of me finding it. Here we go. Now, unfortunately, there's not much to say about this. I had to send off for it. Another one provided by Phantom Events. It would have been nice to meet Tom in person, but at his age, I doubt he'll be doing any more convention appearances ever. And in fact, even this private signing was a rare one. When I received it... oh, you can see me, there I am. When I received it, there was a little tiny bag of jelly babies with it. So now I can officially say that I've been given a jelly baby by Tom Baker. And that is a badge of honour for any Doctor Who fan. This is a rock.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
Probably the weirdest thing in my Doctor Who in any collection, I suppose. I was travelling through the Peak District with my family once when a specific mountain range looked really familiar to me. How they didn't know I was autistic at that point, I'll never know, because I recognised them from set photos, the filming of The Abominable Snowman. Made in 1966, set in the Himalayas, Nat Franken Pass was used as its stand-in. And I want to stress, this episode is missing. It's been animated now, but back in the day there was only one episode of this surviving serial, and that, and set photos, was for some reason enough to leave a permanent mark on my brain that simply passing through Wales in the car, I was able to make it about Doctor Who. I took this rock from the mountain, specifically the spot where the TARDIS lands and is later again used when Jamie and Zoe are pursued by the Yeti, I believe. It is probably the weirdest thing that I own as a Doctor Who fan, and I've always fancied the idea of getting Fraser to sign this, if anything, just to give him a bit of a good convention story. Joining my rock, I also have this little fella. He is a replica of the little Yeti figurine seen in The Abominable Snowman. This was signed by Fraser, who obviously appeared in the Yeti's opening story, and then also by John Levine, plays Sergeant Benton. Never in a Yeti story. Yeah, I met Fraser at a convention, got him to sign this, moved on in the queue onto John Levine, and I don't think I gave him this. I think he actually took it from me to sign it. But yeah, these two together are my little Abominable Snowman collection. They've been doing these Doctor Who animations for years, but for those not in the know, I'll explain. Some episodes of Doctor Who are missing from the official BBC archives, but by sheer chance, we still have the audio for a lot of the missing episodes. So, animating that audio in with the existing footage has been the BBC's way of giving these lost pieces of media a home release. But these steelbooks are the new wave of animation where instead of just covering the missing episodes, they're reimagining the productions as what the story would have liked to look like when it first came out. So, the macra goes from this to this. Conflicting feelings about them changing things when they do the animations. The way I see it is you can either watch an approximate recreation of something from 50 years ago, or you can just watch a whole new thing altogether. That sounds like a good deal. You know, if you can't recreate something exactly, then just go for something completely different. But some of the earlier animations really recreated it well. I don't know, I understand why for a new Who audience putting in grander sets, monsters and helicopter chases makes the story more palatable, but what about fans of the original? I'm glad that these animations come with two versions. You can watch the widescreen colour and the 4x3 black and white. You can probably guess which one I'm watching. So, although I don't have anything against these more expanded stories, I do have my personal preferences. I don't own a steelbook for it yet, but I really like the Underwater Menace animation. I know it got some flack for changing the designs of the fish people. I get it. I do love the campiness of the original, but this take on the story is an almost Lovecraftian adaptation. Atlantis looks more like Cthulhu's sunken city of R'lyeh, and you watch it in black and white 4x3 and it's got some genuinely quite spooky imagery. Fury from the Deep is maybe my favourite missing episode. It's got a real creepy tone, and to borrow from what I just said about the Underwater Menace, it does have a very distinctive Lovecraftian vibe about it, and this does have the distinction of being the time that the Doctor fought a weed monster. I loved the Celestial Toymaker animation. I'm sorry, I am a fan of the 3D. I think the Web of Fear one was awful, but it had such a dramatic improvement for this story that I wish they'd carried it on. If the animation can go from this
Oh my goodness, it's you.
to this,
If you make one mistake, you lose.
imagine what the next one could have looked like. There's a fan animation on YouTube of the wheel in space done in that design, and it looks so much better than what we're getting for the Smugglers. Also, this is a terrifying story to watch if you're not sober, and I'll say nothing more on the matter. Galaxy 4. I think, as a story, Galaxy 4 is underrated as hell. It's got a nice little moral in it about not judging by appearances, with the beautiful Dravins being the baddies and the grotesque Riddles being the sympathetic good guys.
The story doesn't quite match the quality of the message, and the animation is bloody weird in this, though. Hartnell looks absolutely ripped. The set design is just big and empty, like a shitty backrooms. This is one to watch in black and white. In fact, I'd probably say all of these benefit from watching in the 3x4 black and white. It's very obvious that these animations are designed to be watched like this. We have the Abominable Snowman. I love the setting and tone of this story. It has no music, and that quietness is loud and unsettling. But I don't think I'm as much of a fan of the stylized simplicity of the character designs here. Most six-parters can be difficult to get through anyway, but I feel like if this was 4 parts, it might be up there with Tomb of the Cybermen and Mine Robber as a Troutnell classic. Troutnell? Who the hell is Troutnell? And I've much of that same sentiment with Evil of the Daleks. It's got the same animation style, but luckily the story of this one massively makes up for it. Evil of the Daleks was planned as the last Dalek story. No idea why this is still in the plastic. And you can tell. We return to Skaro, we meet the Dalek Emperor. It's a cracking story that deserves its 6-part length. My biggest complaint, frankly, is the god-awful artwork that we got for the DVD cover, especially when you've got that beauty to compare it to. The Faceless Ones, very good animation on this one. I love the logo. It's very science fiction pulp magazine. No one cares about the Faceless Ones, let's be honest. The Web of Fear. God, what to say about the Web of Fear? I mean, it's a fantastic story. The opening scene literally plays out like a James Whale Universal Monsters movie. It is the Web of Fear. They even had to film a trailer prior to the story of Pat Troughton warning viewers that this serial might be a little bit too scary for younger audiences. Not to mention the set design of the London Underground was so good that the BBC got in shit with the UK government because they thought they'd been illegally filming down there. This is a story that is committed. Also, the introduction of Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, though of course he's only Sergeant in this, and the reintroduction of Professor Travers, who we first met in The Abominable Snowman. The biggest issue with this story is, well, when the 10 episodes were rediscovered in Nigeria, it was all of The Enemy of the World and Web in Fear, until someone bloody nicked one. Yeah, we know all episodes of it were found. There's pictures of all of the canisters together, and there's a million different theories on who it was that nicked it, and I'm not going to get into them right now. But this release came with an animated version of episode 3, instead of the original, and in theory, I do like the 3D. I think Patrick Troughton is a very physical comedic actor, and even just having the characters always moving lets my brain know that I'm watching real people, and that does help things. Just what the hell is going on with these faces? I wish they'd sat on this one longer before releasing it. The Celestial Toymaker animation fixes all of these issues that came up, so imagine how good this one could have been. I do think 3D is the correct way to go with these reconstructions, but not like this. Ian Levine is also doing some AI reconstructions, and I know Levine is quite a controversial figure in Doctor Who fandom right now, but in fairness, some of these are quite decent. I'm going to keep an eye on it, because although I don't have anything against the animations, I got a feeling that the AI reconstructions are a little bit closer to what fans of the originals might like. Power of the Daleks. This is the first of the completely animated stories, and you can kind of tell. They did re-release this story with better animation, but I wish we'd got an updated steelbook as well. One that matched the rest of the look. This is the first one that they did, and it was before they settled on this ominous shot of the TARDIS that the steelbooks eventually all decided to swear by. Absolutely hands off to them for updating the animation, but we could have done with an updated steelbook release. If anything, just so it looks better on the shelf.
And I think that's it for now. But I have no intention of slowing down my thrifting, so if you enjoyed this, let me know down below, and maybe I'll do an updated version in a few years. And if you haven't enjoyed it, I hope you have found it just the least bit interesting. We're Sildring high, my friends. Bye bye.